It's hard to imagine what the world was like in content creation, or as it was called back in the day, just media, without real-time feedback. We have the opportunity and luxury now of getting real-time feedback with all of the content we create and post. We take that information and we analyze it, and we then fine-tune our approach.
Evan, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us on the show today. And to set the stage for our audience, you as the CEO of Kiss the Ground are doing incredible work advancing the message, the mission of regenerative agriculture. But if you would just give us an elevator pitch, a 101 about who Kiss the Ground is and what you guys are doing.
Thank you, Bethany and Prentice, for having me join. Much appreciated. Most people don't know who Kiss the Ground is, what Kiss the Ground is, or what regenerative agriculture is. We're a nonprofit that have been around for 10 years. A film named after the work we do called Kiss the Ground, narrated by Woody Harrelson, debuted on Netflix in 2020. So people started to watch the film, get inspired, and learn a little bit about regenerative agriculture. And what it is it's all about soil health with regenerative farming practices leading to healthier soil, which sequesters the carbon and causes a reversal of the climate crisis we're facing, and creates soil that absorbs more water, producing nutrient-dense foods, which helps cure our wellness issues. So we promote regenerative agriculture as a viable solution for our water, wellness, and climate crisis through storytelling, partnerships with companies, and through education.
Throughout your career, you've been a leader in building successful platforms across various media formats. And so I'm just curious how you would say, how has this expertise informed your approach to storytelling at Kiss the Ground? I know there was momentum before you came in, but how have you kind of built on that with your unique experience?
I've had what many refer to as a non-linear career. I simply look at it as a very natural evolution of what I'm drawn to, and I've built certain skills such as storytelling along the way. I started my career when I realized I could get paid to talk about music. That was my first real calling, to help promote artists. I was a very mediocre artist at best myself, who just really played in cover bands because I loved music. And I really liked the behind the scenes, to really talk about an artist's story and to help promote that artist's story was my entree to storytelling. And from there, going on to leadership roles in various media organizations, what I realized, it's really gotten so much more severe in this direction with technology, is limited attention spans. To tell the story and to cut through clutter, one has to really master that fine art of the edit and knowing what story you are trying to tell and who the audience is for that story. And introduce digital technology and data, you get instant feedback to see what's working, and you can really hone in on that. So I would say my entire career has really helped me fine-tune storytelling skills, whether it be entertainment-based or it be cause-related. And oftentimes it starts with some research. What do people really want to see? And then it comes down to a bit of trial and error.
Evan, so a little bit more on that with storytelling. You've got all these different segments now. You've got all these different audiences now. So how are you able to kind of tailor messages accordingly?
It's a great question. For us, it really started with research. When I got to Kiss the Ground, I was a little embarrassed. I was served on the board of the Surfrider Foundation for 6 years. We sat in meetings talking about very important matters, such as runoff from gardens, putting toxic chemicals in the ocean, plastics, obviously, with the fish we're consuming. All of these issues, when we talked about beach cleanups and some of the solutions, it felt like, wow, with education, we could make it not worse, but can we undo the damage done? And, so I saw the film Kiss the Ground, and I was taken aback and inspired. And like I said, a little embarrassed that I knew nothing about regenerative agriculture. And when I joined, what I learned was those who have been talking about the movement and in the movement for a decade or so were really talking among themselves to a large degree about something that the mass population didn't know about. So I was not alone in coming in, even though I was on the board of a really, really successful environmental nonprofit. I was very much in the in the vast majority of not knowing much or anything about regenerative agriculture. So data helped me really hone in on how we should tell the story. And it needed to start without shaming. We didn't want anybody to feel like how silly it is that they don't know this exists, because not many people knew it exists. So we needed to meet audiences where they were at. And what we found was 70% of those we surveyed would spend money for products that they felt helped their wellness. So therefore, we really started to focus on wellness as the primary message for healthy soil, as opposed to disaster, climate, alarmist type news, which is everywhere and does effectively get people's attention. But we knew we needed to really lean into wellness, which is most applicable to the masses, number one, and to not talk with too much jargon, and to really meet people in simple terms. So it was a very inclusive conversation and story.
Was that shift pushing towards the positive and not on the negative? Did that feel risky at all, or did that feel very natural? And how do you think it's played out?
When I came in to Kiss the Ground, our co-founders, Ryland Engelhart and Finian Makepeace and Karen Rodriguez, had been there for 10 years. And I held a lot of what they created on the Move Forward plan. And that is, Kiss the Ground is taken from a Rumi quote. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground, meaning everybody's going to show up a little differently to solve the wellness issue, the climate crisis, the water issue. And we wanted from the beginning to be an inclusive movement that simply offered people education and inspiration and hope to show up in whatever regard, whether they wanted to take a deep learning soil advocate training class that we offer that 5,000 people around the globe took and really become soil experts, or if they simply wanted to follow our Instagram and share the story.
Data and audience insights are crucial, of course, in today's digital landscape. So how are you leveraging these to optimize Kiss the Ground's digital outreach?
It's hard to imagine what the world was like in content creation, or as it was called back in the day, just media, without real-time feedback. We have the opportunity and luxury now of getting real-time feedback with all of the content we create and post. Whether it's an email we send out to 500,000 subscribers, we can click open rate, click through, where people click through, or it's an Instagram post. We know within the first hour what chord it struck. We also know when we have a 10-minute mini documentary, what kind of reaction it's starting to get within hours of publishing it and posting it. And even with PDFs and graphics that we post and publish through social media and on our website, we know what the reaction is going to be pretty quickly. And we take that information and we analyze it, and we then fine tune our approach.
It's so interesting. You're running a media company, aren't you?
Yes, I am. People said to me, "Are you sure you want to leave 20-something years in leadership, in music, in technology, in entertainment?" And as I started talking to Kiss the Ground, what I realized pretty quickly was we're storytellers and educators. At the end of the day, it's a media company. And I asked, some of my mentors in the space about how different I would need to operate a 501c3 versus a for-profit business. And what the conversation really landed at was more innovative and better performing CEOs run it like it's a business. There happens to be a different tax filing status. And of course, the mission runs deep in the organization. I would argue it does in most healthy organizations, whether it's a for-profit or a nonprofit. Culture matters,
right,
and aligns. But yes, we very much are a media company.
Evan, sometimes in these conversations, you get fixated on one thing and it's hard to move forward until I just ask the question. So I have to ask the question, who are the artists behind you on the wall? And I feel like I'm I need to know the answer to that and the meaning of it.
You're not the first who asked. Take a guess, and then I'll spill the tea.
Justin Timberlake just looks from here, but I can't tell. It's probably completely wrong.
And who do you believe is the other one?
I can't.
Oh gosh,
I can only see like a little.
I know I can only see it. It's hard to see the other one. So, I'm just going to go with JT, and then I don't know.
Okay, so it's Chris Martin from Coldplay, and it's the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Okay.
You're the second person. You're the second person that guessed that was JT.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd like to say, right when I got on the call, my first thought was, "Oh, he has JT behind him." So there's that.
And I'm very glad you asked. And what I'll share the significance is I've got the Ramones up over my desk. I've got a wave up over there. In my career, I've been very fortunate in that we've created programming, we've created content where we got to turn audiences on to artists on their way up, and then to see artists in different circumstances, whether it's in an intimate studio performance, covering songs. So that Coldplay performance was from, I believe, our iHeartRadio sessions in Los Angeles. And the Red Hot Chili Peppers, I will never forget, that was from our AOL music sessions. It was a small rehearsal studio. Anthony had a notepad. The record hadn't come out. It was the follow-up right after Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magic. So it was the Californication, I think. And he was still reading his notebook. The songs were all new to them performing live. They'd recorded them all, but they were essentially in a small room, just vibing like a band with our cameras. So that one holds a very special place for me.
That's very cool. And I'm glad we talked about this. It's so, your background is so relevant in that you know what it takes to have some showmanship and entertainment. And it's like you're bringing that to a topic and a category that could be a little self-serious, and you could nod off or get overwhelmed with science. And I think the way you're talking about this, it's very clear that like you have to keep people's attention, and not that it has to be sexy at all times, but it has to be relevant and interesting all the time.
That's right.
And I just want to add, I love what you shared about the way that you think about nonprofits versus for-profits. And I think sometimes in the nonprofit space, I had a chapter in my career doing fundraising and marketing consulting for nonprofits at scale, global nonprofits. Yeah. But I do think a limiting belief can be, that, we're so different, that it's like, if they really do in general think about them as very different categories. But I love your perspective of, it's all business, really. It's all media. And honestly, any business at this point is kind of running a media company too, the way that marketing has evolved and continues to evolve. Yeah. So I love your perspective. I just wanted to react to that.
I appreciate it. And, the biggest lesson came from a failure of mine when a startup that I was working with, we were doing independent music festivals, a very difficult business for an independent company. We had some partners that didn't agree, and we ran out of money. Things get pretty serious pretty quickly when employees we paid everybody for everything they'd done, thank goodness. But, what I realized was you can be passionate about the mission. You can have so much heart, but wait and see what happens if people don't get a paycheck. Wait and see what happens if vendors who provide a service for you don't get paid. So therefore, I run it very much like a business with 3 primary focuses. The first is on the team. You have to have a great team. The second is on the brand, the health of the brand. And, I inherited a very strong brand that people react very positively to, who have seen the films and follow our website and all of our content. And the third is cash. If you run out of money, the first 2 don't matter. So therefore, it became very apparent to me that it needed to be run like a business with key performance indicators, accountability, all the best practices that are in a business.
Yeah, that's great. Well, on that topic, so there's an intersection of passion and, doing something great for your community and the world and people, but also commerce, right? And so we've had some of that experience at Door Number 3, working with brands that are at that intersection. Like we worked with brands like Maine Root, which is an organic soda, or Beyond Good, which is a chocolate from Madagascar, Myowell, which, prebiotic soda, with agave from Mexico. But all of them have this through line of wanting to really have a big emphasis on sustainable agriculture and positive social impact, and do things right and treat farmers well and pay them well and all these things. But talk about how you're seeking out partnerships what types of brands, companies you want to be partnering with, and how that makes all the difference. I guess value alignment is essentially the theme here.
It's a really interesting question. When I was on the board of the Surfrider Foundation, we had that exact deep conversation. Should our partners only be those in the surf industry, or should we be working with earnest companies who want to do the right thing and want to help make the world a better place, and they want to help the environment, but they also are very much a for-profit company, and maybe they're even big, and there's going to be some things that are a little messy. So when I came to Kiss the Ground, I took all of those conversations and I got with the team and those leaders who are most influential in the industry. And some people said, you don't want to work with big companies. It's all greenwashing. Others said, I don't know, what's your gut tell you? And, others said, just work with nonprofits. And where we landed was I went to meet with a very large company. And I asked them, I said, where are you? If we were to put out a press release together, what would the headline be and what would the subheader be? There was a bunch of big, grandiose remarks about how Kiss the Ground is a leader and so are we, doing all these great things. And then I said, is that accurate? And the most senior person in the room said, let's be real. We're just entering the conversation. We're just getting started. So the second the humble tone from a leader in the room set in, I said, now we can work together. So really, I want to be partnering with companies of all sizes who absolutely want to help. First of all, camaraderie, internal communication. So if you're under the age of 30 right now, when you're being interviewed, you're interviewing the employer as well. And you're going to ask them, well, what's your stance, maybe if it's in supply chain, on your sourcing of products? Or if you're not in the supply chain, what are you doing? What's the company doing to make the world a better place? What's the company doing for our climate issues? What's the company doing for our wellness? That's a very natural conversation. And I've decided there can be companies of all size, shape, and form in every vertical who share an earnest interest in wanting to participate in that conversation. And why wouldn't we offer our services to help them first internally with no press release, with nothing outward facing, but internally? How can we educate them and inspire them in a way where they can learn about the crisis we face, which is existential, and how we can work towards a better future together, just starting with a humble willingness to learn internally. It brings teams closer together. And then if there's an opportunity to extend that message to their audiences in a way that is very humble and very much serving, that's a tremendous opportunity to help us with our mission in reaching more people. So we go from that 4% awareness to, as Malcolm Gladwell would point to, the tipping point being at about 12% awareness, giving people the opportunity to take their purchase power and put it towards regenerative products. Then all of a sudden, government policy will follow suit, and we're in a much better position.
That's really interesting. And it shows when you go to your site and look at the partners that you're working with. You obviously have very big and then some smaller, less known brands, but you're applying the same litmus test and it's deciding whether they're the right partner across the board. And it shows. Yeah, that's exciting. I think that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, and it would extend into how do you identify individual influencers to partner with. So could you zoom in on that piece a little bit as well of how do you identify the right kind of partners with a direct line to people's feeds in the influencer space?
Another great question. When I started my career, I worked at a record company. So we had artists signed to our labels, and I became a resource to those artists to help them on their career journey. That was the original influencer who I worked with, whether it was Dave Matthews Band, who literally, could not get arrested on the West Coast while they were already huge on the East Coast, or Sarah McLachlan or Alicia Keys. So many artists at different stages of their careers. But that was my initial opportunity to work with influencers and to see the power of their message. So we did a show with Alicia Keys on Worldwide AIDS Day. When we were at AOL Music, we broadcast the show live from a small club, and she agreed to be a spokesperson for a charity. She's still the spokesperson of the charity that I was a founding board member of at that time. And I saw the power of her lending her voice to that cause and just how much impact there was. So that was my first experience in working with influencers. Throughout my career, I'd always set up platforms that helped artists. So artists, entertainers, celebrities would come because there was a benefit. When I came to Kiss the Ground, it didn't take me too long to realize we didn't have to solicit and we didn't have to try too hard. People saw the film, celebrities and people of influence not only saw the film and or saw some of our short form programming or just heard of the organization from a friend, but people who learned about it wanted to participate. So what I've really found is it's about finding people who are equally passionate as the staff is. And while their time constraints are oftentimes much greater, there is a how can I help spirit. And what my job is to make it easy for their impact to be meaningful without having to put much effort or time in simply by lending their voice.
So throughout your career, I mean, you've had great success at like staying ahead of ways to connect with audiences. And now with the world being more fragmented than ever, there's more opportunity there, but it also can be harder. So how do you stay on top of that? What are some emerging trends that you see as potential opportunities for Kiss the Ground's advocacy efforts moving forward?
I mentioned the health of a brand being one of the top three things I really focus on. Kiss the Ground brand, whether it's people who follow our newsletter, watch the short form content, or people who take the time to watch a documentary like the film Kiss the Ground, or a mini doc that we publish a couple annually. The net takeaway we get from audience members is it really inspired me. It gave me a lot of hope. It evoked feeling. So it's more about what we stand for and having an authentic voice as opposed to trying to shock or trying to gimmick. I believe, and I used to train for half marathons regularly, steady wins the race. Our steady approach with a cadence where I'll give you an example of one of our short form programs. When I got to Kiss the Ground, we treated it much like a media company with a look at almost like having our upfronts. What is our season of programming going to be next year? And what we landed at was, okay, the follow-up film to Kiss the Ground is going to launch first in theaters and then it'll go to a streamer. But what about people that won't watch a 2-hour documentary? We have mini documentaries. So we'll have 3 releases a year of these mini documentaries that really go in deep and humanize and tell the story of a farmer and what their journey was and why they chose regenerative agriculture. What about people who just want to scroll in 90 seconds is kind of as far as they'll go? So we created these more, we call them edutainment. They're educational, but it's way more entertainment based for Instagram, for TikTok. And one of the shows we launched, we call Regen Rundown. And our goal of that show is to be, whenever there's news about sustainability or a big topic or even a big debate in the wellness or climate space, we want to be the go-to to make sense of that. So this show is literally 90 seconds of almost like a ripped from the headlines of what does Kiss the Ground have to say about this? Because our goal isn't to be polarizing. It's to talk very much in layman's speak about this issue that's being debated and really deciphering what could be so confusing.
Regenerative agriculture. Let's just admit it. There's a lot of people that have heard that term, but like if you were, someone put a gun to your head and said, but give me a definition. What does it really mean? I mean, I don't know. It's probably not a lot of people that can explain it. So that's the hunch here. But tell us what you're facing now in terms of the biggest challenges for the organization and getting widespread adoption. There's other things too. There's apathy. There's divided attention. There's just political wins. But what are you seeing? What are those big hurdles that you're just going to have to continue to chip away at?
It's funny you put it that way. We, in a very safe environment, asked people through a survey, have you heard of regenerative agriculture? 20% of US adults said yes. And then we went on to see if they could name any principle or any practice of regenerative agriculture. And once we incorporated that in, the number went down to 4%. The truth of the matter is, the biggest hurdle I tell our team every day is getting in our own way and overcomplicating the message. Anytime we have a sensible conversation, and that can be one way, somebody viewing a story or or graphics or a 10-minute docuseries, whatever it is we put out, the reaction tends to be, well, that makes sense. So it's awareness. It's simply awareness. And we need repetition because we do live in a look over here moment with lots of messages coming from lots of angles. And we need to repeat the messages, and we need to keep them super simple and meet people where they're at.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I feel like that's why a lot of people come. You have a really good handle on that. Just be able to say that and know it. I feel like a lot of clients come our way because that is what they struggle with. There's so many things to say, maybe especially in a science-backed kind of storytelling area. So I think what happens is you just end up overcomplicating. You're just saying too many things to too many people, and the temptation is always there. But reality is, people have the attention span of a gnat. You got to be quick.
Absolutely. So to end our conversation, I would love to put you on the spot a bit and ask one of my favorite questions, which is, what is energizing you the most? Just when you wake up in the morning, what's getting you out of bed and making you feel optimistic?
So many things. The truth of the matter is, I'm a serial optimist. I've loved everything I've done in my career, though there have always been annoyances in corporate culture and, in some bureaucracies. What I love right now is I am promoting something that really inspires people. And I love the challenge of how hard it is to get people to care about anything anybody has to say, and to know that when I can capture somebody's attention the right way, it will educate, inform, and inspire them. And I absolutely believe that these massive issues we're facing with our wellness due to all the chemicals we've been ingesting and the nutrient depraved foods that we've been ingesting, it's solvable. I think sequestering the carbon that we didn't know at the time, all of these things, it's not about the blame. We are where we are, and there's a tremendous viable solution to help undo the damage we've done. I love nature sports. I'm a surfer. Nothing makes me feel as good as a good session in the water. Nature is delivering that to me. And I want my kids to be able to surf with their kids. And, that's what keeps me excited, energized, and inspired. It's leaving, my little contribution to help lead something more positive for the generations ahead. And I really believe, from my daughter who's 20, who's the one who brought the film to me in the first place, and her generation, they really want to make a difference, but they need us to set them up because they need things we've learned about storytelling and how to organize and how to inspire. They need a head start. And I believe we're going to leave this initiative and this mission in very capable hands to carry it on. I think the next 5 to 10 years are absolutely critical. So I look at a clock that's ticking, and I've got plenty of energy left. So that's what keeps me waking up super energized and optimistic.
That's well said. Well, you guys are doing an incredible job. And I want to say just how inspiring it is. And thank you for what you do, and to the team, and then just to whoever is watching. What an educational conversation it's been, and also inspiring. So keep going. Thank you for your commitment to this mission. And then thank you for being with us on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you, Evan.
Thank you both so much for having me and for sharing this message with your audience. I hope they are inspired and in turn really feel called to show up in whatever way makes the most sense, and to tell a friend that regenerative agriculture is a thing, and to check out Kiss the Ground and the work we do.